For some reason, I don't know if it's just a thing. I just can't find a way to shake Ron DeSnowflake. But for some odd reason, he just keeps coming on back like a damn boomerang. So in this picture, of course, you see Ron DeSnowflake on the right, but on the left of him is Charlie Crist, and he is a former congressman, and they are both competing for the governorship down in Florida. Of course, you know, Ron DeSnowflake is going for re-election, and Charlie Crist is going for being the governor, which would unseat Ron DeSnowflake, and he would be the new governor of Florida. Now, it was brought to my attention that they had a debate, like all the other candidates around the nation are having. And the topic of CRT, yes, Ron DeSnowflake's favorite topic of discussion, and I'm saying that with all sarcasm because I know how much he hates to even say those three letters, but he always brings it up. But the CRT thing came up. And I'm going to play some audio for you. It's only a minute and 21 seconds long. And I actually have two clips to play for you. And this one is this first one is more like an introductory type thing when it came to talking about CRT. The other one's going to be more about when they really get into it. But in this clip right here, you're going to hear both men speak on this topic. And on the second one, it's just going to be Ron DeSnowflake.
Teaching all of American history, including slavery, civil rights, segregation. It's important that that's taught. But what I think is not good is to scapegoat students based on skin color. It's not good to distort American history. I'm proud of our history. I don't want to teach kids to hate our country. I don't want to teach kids to hate each other. And the way to stop discrimination on the basis of race is to stop discriminating on the basis of race.
Okay, so that was Ron DeSnowflake's take on it right there. And that's the typical response that I would expect from him when it comes to that. It's almost like he wants to tell half-truths about what really is going on in the establishment. That's just who he is. This guy is all about pushing out a bunch of lies as much as he possibly can. But that's just who he is. No surprise or shock there in anything that he just said. Now, what I'm going to play for you now is... it's the same clip, but now you're going to hear what his opponent, Charlie Crist, had to say.
We ought to teach facts in our schools. We ought to teach the truth in our schools. There's an old expression, Ron. Those who don't know history may be condemned to repeat it. Usually people use that in reference to the Holocaust. It could just as easily be referenced to slavery in our country. It happened. It's a fact. We shouldn't have a whitewash approach to educating our children. That's not right. How are they going to do well in life if they don't even know our own history? And we're not going to teach people to hate each other in our schools. I don't know where you get that idea. I don't have hate in my heart. And I don't think we need to be doing that in our schools.
So that's that whole clip right there. So he basically came with the, pretty much the facts. And if you notice and picked up the audience, and the tone in the audience was different when the two men were speaking. When Ron DeSnowflake was talking, you had people, he barely had any claps. Most of the people was like, oh my God. That just shows you right there that the people in Florida are tired of him. They've been over him. So if Ron DeSnowflake happened to lose the governor spot of Florida, I wouldn't be surprised. On the flip side, if he won or got reelected, I wouldn't be surprised either. So it's a toss-up for me whether he won or lost. Now, Charlie Crist, he basically said, like, you're trying to, like, rewrite history. You're only trying to tackle it from one aspect. And we know that's what he does. But, Ron DeSnowflake, he always talks about, if you talk about history, if you talk about the full true history of America, then that means that people who look like him or identify as him or whatever the case may be, they're going to, quote unquote, feel attacked. Or people are going to come after them or try to make them feel guilty about what happened in the past. And that's exactly why a lot of PC people, especially these dubbed SPC ones, don't like teaching true history, or they want to rewrite history, because if they rewrite it into their own narrative, then that means that they'll feel safe. If they have to tell history the way that it's supposed to be and meant to be told, then they're always going to feel attacked. Charlie Crist said, I don't feel attacked. He says, I don't, feel, guilty. He said it happened. It is what it is. You just gotta, if there's any repercussions that's going to come from that, it's just going to happen. But see, the thing is, people like Ron DeSnowflake said, I don't want to teach that history because I don't want to deal with what my ancestors put someone else's through. So let me just go ahead and say that this didn't happen the way that it did, or give this a particular label so it'll make me feel good. After all, this is the same guy that put so many laws or bills, or tried to pass a bunch of laws and bills in the state of Florida to try to rewrite narratives to comfort PC individuals. I think I did a couple of videos a few months ago talking about some of those bills that he tried to put into place, where it would raise the comfort level for PC individuals such as himself. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and play this other clip. Now, this clip right here, Ron DeSnowflake really showed why I gave him that title of DeSnowflake.
Actually, if you look around the country, they do have programs, unfortunately, where they will take a student, look at their race, say, okay, you're white, you're an oppressor. If you're black, you're oppressed. And think about what that does to a 6 or 7-year-old kid. That's wrong. You're seeing that. You have people that are teaching, and actually his running mate has said this in the past, that teaching the United States was built on stolen land. That is inappropriate for our schools. It's not true. And I'm happy. It actually...
Okay, so you just heard that right there. And I wish I could pause and go, but it's on the reels. And that's the one thing I hate about reels on Instagram, is that you can't pause them. So it's like I got to go try to base off of memory and what he was saying. So in the beginning part of it, he was basically talking about how, well, let me just summarize it, because I don't want to leave anything out. First off, that last part was absolutely ridiculous. He said, we don't want to go around teaching our kids that this land we live on was stolen, or it's wrong to teach the kids that the United States was built on stolen land. Let's not forget that Christopher Columbus had a whole holiday, and still has a whole holiday named after him. Let's not forget what he did. And wasn't that 2 weeks ago? I believe that was 2 weeks ago. And I believe that the indigenous people of this land fought to get it renamed. And I think they actually, I don't know if they were successful or not, but they were actually able to stamp their own holiday on top of that day. Nobody really acknowledges Columbus Day. And the only reason people really do acknowledge it nowadays is because it's a day off from school. It's a day off from work. It's a federal holiday. Nobody's going around having Christopher Columbus Day parades. I can't think of one that has happened in recent years. I can't even think of one that happened when I was a kid. So we, know the real history of Christopher Columbus. And that's basically the history that they were teaching us, that he quote unquote discovered America, even though Ron DeSnowflake just said it was wrong to teach people that the United States was built on stolen land, when clearly it most definitely was. He also mentioned something about if you are a white kid or a white person. Well, we're talking about schools. He said if you're a white kid, you're taught that you are an oppressor. And if you are a black kid, you are taught that you are oppressed. I don't know what schools, whether when I was in school, or even now, for that matter, even is teaching that. See, he's pushing out a lot of propaganda because he wants he wants that anti quote unquote CRT talking point to flow like water, like a stream, without any type of interruption of that stream going in the direction that he wants it to go to. Because he always runs a campaign, or he always runs on being anti-CRT. This is the guy that came up with a bill called, what was it called? The Stop Woke Act or something like that. And it didn't really go that far. And listen again to the audience and how they're receiving him. Every time he says something out of his mouth, the people in the audience are like, oh my God, if you don't shut up, like this stuff you're talking about, the people down in Florida cannot stand him. These are people in the audience that are responding to him in a tone of, oh my God, can someone please cut this man's mic? Because they're over him. They are tired of listening to him talk and ramble on about anti-CRT this and anti-CRT that. We keep saying CRT is taught on a collegiate levels. It's not on an on a public school level, elementary, middle, or high school. But he keeps pumping that out there like it's there. It's almost like this guy is fighting the CRT ghost, or the ghost of CRT past. He also said in that same vein that they have programs in schools where they will take a look at a student's race or something to that effect of some kind of program, which the audience again responded. It was like, what are you talking about? What program is there out there that does something like that? Not saying it couldn't be one out there, but nothing that we can say is tangible that you can actually physically point out and say. And the thing is, he didn't even actually say what program. First off, he didn't say what program it allegedly is. Like, what's the name of this program? And what school, what county, what city, what state is this so-called program that is out there doing what you're claiming that it is doing? Like I said, this guy built a whole campaign and his whole governorship, or whatever you want to call it, and his positioning on particular talking points that he has to continuously lie and lie and lie to the people in hopes that they bite like fish to a worm on a hook and take the bait and hope that out of that lie blossoms a truth. That's just who he is. And again, I call him the snowflake because everything that he tries to implement or has implemented has been to the comfort level of PC people who, I guess in their own warped way, feelings get hurt whenever they are told the truth about themselves. And it's usually having something to do with their history in this establishment known as the USA. That's really all it boils down to. So for him to just get up there and say that, let me tell you, the audience told it all. The response from the audience whenever he was talking and bringing up this lets you know the people down in Florida do not mess with him like that. But they continue to try him out there. Remember, he put out there after post Hurricane Ian that most of the looters were immigrants. Meanwhile, I did 2 videos. One of them was a PC woman who I doubt was an immigrant. The other one had 7 guys. 5 of them were, I guess, Cuban, maybe. And the other 2 were PC. When he said immigrants, we know exactly who he's talking about. We know exactly who he's talking about. And then on top of that, look at Ron DeSnowflake's entire governorship. Keep in mind, in case y'all are unaware, Ron DeSnowflake barely beat Andrew Phillum. Even after Andrew Phillum lost because of that incident that happened with him, he barely beat him. Andrew Phillum was close to winning the governorship of Florida, even despite that controversy that was happening with him. If that stuff with Andrew Phillum did not happen, Ron DeSnowflake, we would be like, who was that? Because Andrew Phillum was a shoo-in to win. But the fact that Ron DeSnowflake barely beat him, even after that major scandal and that major issue and situation happened with Andrew Phillum, and he still barely won, that's saying something. That's why I said earlier, if he loses, I wouldn't be surprised. However, if he wins, I wouldn't be surprised by that either. Because again, this is Florida we're talking about. Florida, there's a lot of Trumpers down in Florida. There's a lot of people. Trump has a big base down there. And we all know Ron DeSnowflake wants, or at least at one point, wanted to be Trump Jr. Because he was saying all the right things. But then he went overboard and Trump got away from him. And now he's pretty much like a nomad and he's out on his own. Now, I don't know too much about this Charlie Crist guy to give him too much leeway, but he said all the right things at that debate, at least in this portion right here. I didn't watch the entire thing. I was just covering this part. He said all the right things. He got the crowd support, as you can tell. It was way different. It was like night and day when it came to the support. Charlie Crist got a big round of applause with what he said, and DeSnowflake, he's lucky if he even got one clap.